Here. Hi, sorry for the delay. So yes, call the meeting to order. It is now 5:16 on December 13th. I guess, do I have a motion to call the meeting to order?
No resolution set of committee.
Pardon?
No
Oh,
resolution.
thank you very much. So yes, there is a delegation in today. There's a delegation in.
Jacob, are you ready?
Oh, okay, it's going to be.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Can you confirm you can see my screen, please?
I can see very clear.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council and staff. Thanks for having me on here virtually tonight. My name is Jacob Hanlon, and I'm here on behalf of Food Cycle Sciences Municipal Solutions team to discuss our residential solution to food waste, as well as our partnership with Impact Canada and Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian clean technology company, and we're based out of Ottawa. And we're 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. We do this using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler, and our in-home food recyclers sold directly to consumers through partners like Vitamix and Breville, and as well as the classrooms through partnerships with not-for-profit organizations, and then lastly to municipalities through our Food Cycler Municipal Solutions division. So our municipal solutions help many small, rural, remote, and northern communities keep food waste out of their landfill. We're currently working with 44 municipalities across 7 provinces and territories, from Nelson in BC up to Hay River in Northwest Territories, and several communities in Manitoba. Some nearby to you include East St. Paul, the town of Neepawa, and the rural municipality of Williams. So now the problem, food waste. One of the issues with food waste is that it is avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of our household waste. And it's mostly liquid, which is heavy and freezes in the winter. On top of that, food waste in landfills is responsible for generating harmful greenhouse gases. All these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. So one of the impacts to municipalities is that since food waste makes up such a large portion of our household waste stream, it's causing our landfills to fill up quickly. Operating a landfill is costly for a municipality, so we want to extend the lifespan of our landfills for as long as possible. The environmental impact that comes with organic waste in landfills is that it produces methane gas, which is many times more harmful than CO2. And to put that into perspective, taking 1 ton of food waste out of the waste stream is equivalent to taking a car off the road for an entire year in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. In our communities, putting food waste in the garbage causes odors, which is unpleasant for humans, but of course it's also interesting for animals like bears and raccoons who love to rummage through our trash. And removing food waste from the garbage eliminates these issues, and it also reduces the volume of waste that's going to the landfill. This can save the municipality on hauling and disposal fees, space in your landfill, and then also garbage tag costs for your residents. So we often get asked, haven't we solved this already? And there are green bins, which are common in big cities with high population densities and the right infrastructure. However, this could be cost prohibitive or operationally challenging to implement. And many people in your community might backyard compost, and we think that's a great solution. But unfortunately, backyard composting is also not feasible for everyone. It's certainly not a year-round solution, and there's still a concern about bears and other animals. And then finally, the easiest solution is to continue landfilling your organic waste, but the long-term impacts here are costly and harmful to the environment. So at Food Cycler, we've proposed a different way to deal with our food waste, and this really focuses on making food waste very easy to deal with and with great user experience. Essentially, what we've done is build a small kitchen appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine, and you put in your food waste. This can include meat, poultry, fish, even some bones. And in a matter of hours, you have a nutrient-rich soil amendment that comes out. What you've done is you've essentially recycled it into a sterile state, and you've reduced the weight and volume of it by about 90%. So the average food cycler, the food cycler will process on average approximately 1 kilogram of food waste per cycle, and each cycle takes between 4 and 8 hours to complete, and it uses less than a kilowatt hour of power. So essentially a couple cents per cycle. The result is about 100 grams of dry, sterile, and odorless soil amendment, and you can add this to your plants, your garden, or your lawn. The machine can be used anywhere that has a plug, and most people would use it in the kitchen, in the basement, or even in a heated garage. From an environmental standpoint, the food cycler is comparable to backyard and central composting without taking into account the transportation emissions. And it represents an approximate reduction of greenhouse gas impacts by about 95% when you compare it to sending food waste to the landfill. In terms of an economic impact, our solution offers a return on investment by significantly reducing your waste management costs. And you're looking at savings of upwards of $150 per ton versus traditional methods that involve hauling and disposal. So one thing we've learned from working with our municipal partners is that residents are very interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these things to their communities. With the food cycler, you get to bring something innovative and tangible to your residents, and they don't need to live in a big city to be able to divert their organics. We believe that food waste diversion should be available to all Canadians regardless of where they live. And on top of this social pressure are the impacts of the regulations that are coming in different provinces as well as Canada as a whole. There are a number of diversion targets that municipalities, provinces, and the country are looking to bring into effect over the next couple of years. So with the food cycler, we're reducing waste at the source, and we're focusing on what we like to call that low-hanging fruit. Because since food waste accounts for such a large portion of household waste, it's the single most impactful strategy to achieving these new diversion targets. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're working with several municipalities across Canada, and to date, we've completed pilot programs in over 40 municipalities and over 4,700 households. The results have been overwhelmingly positive. We were able to achieve a significant amount of net new waste diversion, a generous user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars, and a 98% participation rates. Many municipalities have expanded their programs to more households within the community after the initial pilot program. And in Nelson, BC, for example, after 2 successful pilot programs, they are putting a food cycler in every home in their city of 11,000 people. A few months ago, Food Cycler was selected as a finalist in Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge, which is a 3-part initiative from the Government of Canada to reduce Canada's food waste. As a finalist, we were awarded a $400,000 prize and tasked with finding more Canadian municipalities as implementation partners. We're using this funding to invest directly in the pilot projects at a heavily subsidized rate. So these pilots will help us move into the final stage of the challenge, which comes with a grand prize of $1.5 million. Any future funding received will continue to be used to invest into these programs for Canadians, and any municipality that partners with us will have the right of first refusal on subsequent funding. So just to briefly go over the pilot program, it's typically a 12-week project, and residents purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from the municipality. They then use a unit and track the number of cycles per week. At the end, residents get to keep the food cycler, and we ask them to complete a brief survey so we can evaluate the program's success. The results are presented back to you in a final report or a feasibility study, if you will, and this data can be used to support your future waste management decision making or to accompany a recommendation or even a grant application to expand the program. We offer the final report and grant writing support as part of the cost of the pilot program. So in terms of the structure of the funding, funded pilot programs are still available, and here we have some size recommendations. So for a municipality of your size, we recommend the 100-unit pilot program. And the funded pilots work based on a subsidy model where Food Cycle Science provides a discount, and we added a federal investment from Impact Canada to get the price of the unit reduced by 50%. We then asked the municipality to subsidize the cost by $100 per unit plus shipping. So ultimately the resident ends up paying $150 for a $500 machine. And also at the end of this 12-week pilot, the food cycler is theirs to keep as well. So I'd like to highlight that these are merely recommendations based on our experience. We can always explore other program sizes that are tailored to the needs of your budget. But to give you a bit of insight, your neighboring municipality of East St. Paul, they started with a 100 unit program and they actually set a record for us with all 100 units being sold within 71 minutes. And so what they decided to do was increase the program size by another 100 units, and even after they sold those, they were still oversubscribed and had people wanting a unit. So I will also mention the funding period for these programs will close in April 2023 or until the funding is fully allocated, whichever comes soon. And the last major point I just want to make is that Food Cycle Science is happy to work with West St. Paul to apply for the Manitoba Building Sustainable Communities Grant Program to see if we can get some additional funding for a food cycle program. We have a fantastic government relations team here who continually works with our partnering municipalities to find grants that can go towards funding our food waste diversion program. So we would like to welcome West St. Paul as a partner in this food waste challenge, as we believe your community would be a great fit for the benefits of this program. Today we kindly ask you receive our presentation as information, and should there be any interest in partnering with us on a funded pilot program, we'd ask that you refer this to staff for a report and recommendation. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to you today, and I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Anyone have any questions? Councilor Bichetti?
Thank you. Jacob, how, what's the temperature, like what does that machine get to when it's sitting on a counter? Does it have to be on a counter? Could it be in a cubby, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it can go anywhere. Basically, you don't want it pressed up against the wall because it does have a ventilation in the back where more air comes out of. But a few inches from a wall, and it can really go anywhere that's protected from, I guess, the weather elements, and that is in a heated space. It can go up to, I don't want to get this wrong, but it basically goes up to a temperature where any pathogens or harmful bacteria that could be in raw food or slightly expired food, it's all killed so that it allows the byproduct to stick.
Okay. And then one more question, you might know this. So while I was campaigning, people were asking about composters. So what's a composter worth, like a backyard composter? I don't know if you've ever been asked that compared to something like this.
So thank you for the question. The thing with backyard composting is if it's done effectively and done the right way, in terms of any emissions that are associated with the decomposing food, Food Cycler compares very evenly with the backyard composter. We would say that one of the advantages, or some of the advantages with Food Cycler would be that it is a lot easier to use. Not everybody has the space or the time or the effort to effectively use a backyard composter. Obviously the process here with this machine is within 8 hours, and I will emphasize this isn't compost that comes out of here, it's a soil amendment, so it still has the similar nutrients to compost in terms of the phosphorus and the nitrogen and potassium, and it's the kind of thing where you mix it in with your soil and it does help plants grow and help with garden soil health. But compared to a backyard composter, on the emission side of things, it's very similar in terms of greenhouse gas reduction compared to, let's say, I hope that answers your question.
Enough of it. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Councilor Clyburn, your question?
How, if someone were to have this in their home, how often would they be using the machine? Daily or weekly, or how would it go?
Ultimately, that would be decided by the size of the household.
Yeah.
I would say a household of 4 people, 5 people would likely use it every day. However, 2 to 3 people, that could be every couple days. On average, we see between 4 and 5 cycles a week in our municipal programs. So these programs range from 1 person in a house up to 5 or 6, and through our municipal partners and all the data we've collected to date, it's between 4 and 5 cycles per week.
Okay. And what can you place in there? What kind of food types could you put in there?
So you can put most foods in. I would say the exceptions would be things that are extremely tough to break down. Pineapple skin, some corn husks, and then I would say T-bones from T-bone steaks. But you can put in dairy, meat products, bread. In smaller amounts, you can do oil from salad dressings. Essentially, you want to give it a mixed diet where it has kind of all the daily things that would not be edible in terms of coffee grinds, vegetable skins, and any leftovers or things that have gone bad. But ultimately, very few things that can't go in here. Avocado pits can be processed in here.
What about
Eggshell.
chicken and chicken bones and that kind of thing?
Chicken bones, yeah.
And so your proposal is, you can't really compost in the winter, so this is a solution, correct? What
Correct,
do
it's an
you-
alternative.
It's an alternative.
We believe that there's no one size fits all, even in cities where they have green bin programs like here in Ottawa. We have challenges with multi-residential buildings where they're not being seen by the organic waste pickup.
Yeah.
There are people who don't have the backyard space for a backyard composter. And we believe that in a perfect world, people would have options and be able to choose their method of dealing with organic waste.
Okay, so let's say I have one of these in the winter and I make my soil amendment, as you called it, right? What do I do with it in the winter? Do I
Yep,
throw
so in the
it out
winter,
on the snow,
what
or
we see, I'm sorry?
do I throw it out on the snow, or what do I do with it? Do I
So
store
as
it
long as
until the
it's kept
spring?
as long as it's kept in a dry environment, it doesn't rot or go bad or anything like that. So what we see with most of our users and our partners is that they'll have maybe one of those orange Home Depot buckets or any kind of container, and they'll kind of stockpile it throughout the winter, because the 1 kilogram of food waste that goes through the cycle, it comes out as about 100 grams. So it really can be stockpiled for a long time, and then when spring planting comes around, there's a nice full bucket of soil amendment to put in with the garden.
Okay, and you mentioned that this was done at East St. Paul.
Yeah, that's correct.
How did they choose, do you know how they chose their 100 pilot homes? Are you looking for like a mixture of homes, or like four people in a home, 10 people in a home, 2 people in a home? How
It's
did you
really-
determine who did it?
Yeah, so we help provide any kind of marketing material or any kind of bulk mailers through the postage service or anything like that, as well as any type of graphics or flyers to go on the website or to be sent out to residents. And ultimately, with most of our municipal partners, the residents who see this material and want to join the program, they're the ones who sign up. I mean, in East St. Paul, they sent out kind of the marketing material, and as I mentioned, within 71 minutes, all 100 of their first units were spoken for. We've had, in Nelson, BC, as an example, their first pilot, same thing, where they allowed it to be an opt-in program, and then they wanted to see the data in terms of participation rates and adoption rates for, obviously, if someone's going to opt into this program, they probably have some different passions or mindsets to do with climate change and sustainability. So what Nelson did was their second pilot program, they randomly selected 100 of their residents and just plopped a food cycler on their door. And they actually found through the data collection that second 100, the results were even more positive than the first, because these were people who didn't even know there was another solution and didn't know that this was a possibility, and were very pleased with the program.
So when you, basically you're doing like a form of dehydration in a way, right? So when the cycle is taking place, is there any odor that comes off of it?
Nope, so basically it's a filtered system where the machine has charcoal pellets inside that filter out any odors. So any of the warm air that's filtering out of the system is odor-free. And we have refillable filter systems, we have additional carbon packets where filters can be swapped and changed. And then our bucket as well, if residents wanted to leave the bucket from the food cycle, let's say under their sink for collection, the bucket also comes with a lid that has a carbon filter in it as well. So while the food is, let's say, sitting there during the day before they're gonna run their cycle at night, the carbon filtered lid also ensures there are no odors.
So if we were to go forward with this program and people wanted to have refillable charcoal pellets, etc., where would they purchase them? Could they purchase them on a website? Or would they have to come, or would we have to pre-purchase them and they come purchase them from us? How are you working that?
In most of our municipal programs, the municipality purchases them and then sells them back to the residents.
Okay.
That's typically the easiest way to do it in terms of doing a bulk order and saving on shipping costs. Residents can go on our partner's website Vitamix and order the filters, but it is more expensive than if it were to go through us and through the municipality.
Okay, thanks for answering my questions. It looks like a very interesting machine, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
So I guess I got a couple of questions. Is usually in recycling, they don't recommend that you put in meat. So why would you put in meat to this system?
So because this system heats up the food waste, dehydrates it and grinds it down, whether it's spoiled meat, raw meat, it gets to a temperature where any bacteria or pathogens, they'll be cooked up, they'll be eliminated, while still retaining the nutrient value that comes with the mix of foods that go inside. So meat, it's totally fine to go in here. We have a partner out of British Columbia who's a steakhouse. They have a lot of meat scraps that they cycle through here. And I mean, ultimately we say that the best mix is a healthy diet of all the things that you would use up and not be able to eat throughout the day. But in terms of the uniqueness of this machine, when you compare it to, let's say, backyard composters, you can't really put dairy and meat and a lot of these different food items back there. It's typically more fruits and vegetable scraps. But this machine, it'll process any meats you put in.
And what's your heat source? Is it electric,
Sure.
gas?
Yep, so it's electric, so the machine, it just plugs into a regular wall plug and it's all heated inside. It's, as I mentioned, a heating, grinding, dehydrating mechanism. No dangers of being around it or anything. All the heat is kept internal and it's just a bit of warm air that is flushed out through the vent in the back of the system.
And what's the temperature that you go to? Yeah, I know. Do you have an idea what it is?
I really should have this on the top of my head. Unfortunately, I don't remember. I can get that information for you for sure, though.
So this heat source is on all the time? The health.
Not only when the cycle's running.
So if it,
when the machine is idle, if it's just being filled up with food or whatnot, it's completely off. And then once you turn it on, it's within that 4 to 8 hour cycle that it heats up.
okay, and it maintains that temperature.
And it maintains the temperature while the
Okay.
cycle's running. And again, the cycle, it doesn't use up much electricity. For an 8 hour cycle, it would be very similar to having a laptop computer plugged in for the same amount of time in terms of electricity usage.
Oh, okay. Okay, anyone else? Any questions? Okay, thank you for coming with your presentation and for explaining it to us. It was enjoyable. Appreciate the different technologies that you're using, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Have a great evening.
Goodbye. So next is Jennifer. Right, that's Jennifer Ferguson.
Good evening, Council. Just bear with me one moment, please. Hold on.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me here again. This is the second session from our PD, Councillor Pacticum. Nice to meet you. I'm Jennifer Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director of the Red River Planning District. Just to provide you a brief background, I've been the Executive Director for the last 12 years, and prior to that I was a community planner with the organization. We provide planning and development services to our member municipalities. So I just wanted to do a high level, again, who we are, what we do, and some of the specifics of what has gone over the last couple of years. So as we've talked about last time, we cover a very large geographic area providing services to St. Clement, St. Andrews, East St. Paul, West St. Paul, and the village of Denauder. Those services include development approvals, permits, inspections, new houses, commercial buildings, pools, hot tubs, decks. We also provide planning services in terms of planning applications, subdivisions, variances, rezonings, as well as planning initiatives, development plans, secondary plans, zoning bylaws. We provide bylaw enforcement for those items within our jurisdiction. And we also provide advice to our member municipalities on land use and development. So what have we been doing the last few years? It has been a roller coaster, I'll tell you. There's been a lot going on over the last 12 years. Just to give you a bit of a chronology, in 2010 we had the Village of Drumnaller join us, then as the Selkirk District Planning Area Board. In 2012, East St. Paul joined us, and at that time we were issuing around 890 permits in the course of a year. In 2013, we changed our name to the Red River Planning District, and we moved to a then new building in the city of Selkirk at the Gaynor Family Regional Library. And again, we were averaging around just close to 900 permits a year. In 2014, we underwent an organizational review, and that was instrumental in setting a path forward for vision, leadership, and direction for the board as well as administration. That was followed by an operational review. At that time, our staff de-unionized, and we created some staff policies and a policy manual, and permits were inching up. We were getting close to just over 1,200 permits in the course of a year. In 2016, we rebranded and we changed the RRPD logo and website. We created the fast track permit process. What that does is expedite permits that are less complex. Those are accessory buildings that are less than 900 square feet, pools, hot tubs, demolition permits, basement development, things of that nature. We also developed standard operating policies for our staff and introduced our first strategic plan that was on top of the organizational review, operational review, and then the next step was our strategic plan. And again, around 1,200 building permits that year. In 2017, the size of our board reduced from 16 to 11 members, and we had the creation of our executive committee. Previously, we had two working groups, our finance committee and our personnel committee. Those were melded into the one executive committee. We brought forward a GIS migration project and changed our platform for GIS and partnered with our member municipalities through an enterprise license agreement to greatly reduce the cost of providing that service. We launched our customer satisfaction survey, and much to the happiness of our planners, subdivision application maps became a requirement for subdivision applications, giving better information to staff and to council when subdivisions came forward. And we were issuing around 1,400 permits during that time. 2018, we saw a municipal election and a 50% turnover in our board. We formalized a complaint process as an approving authority. Of course, you can appreciate we get complaints from time to time, and we wanted to ensure that there was a process in place to deal with those. And again, around 1,300 permits issued that year. 2019 was a bit of a rough year. We had a workplace climate assessment as well as a mediated conversation. There was a relaunch of the customer satisfaction survey. We moved forward with an in-house communication strategy, and we started our development plan update project, and again, around 1,300 permits that year. 2020 was a hard year for the world. COVID made it difficult. We transitioned to remote work and transitioned to video meetings. I am very proud that we were able to go fully remote in 3 days. That was a tremendous undertaking, but it just shows how nimble we can act and how quickly we can respond. We did an update of our strategic plan in 2020. A new development plan was adopted, and there was the introduction of Bill 37 and 38. And again, around 1,400 permits issued. 2021, we are still dealing with COVID and some of the remote work situations. We implemented Cloud Permit, which is our digital digital permitting platform, which helped considerably in the work that we were doing, improving efficiency, accountability, as well as metrics tracking. The City of Selkirk submitted its application to withdraw from the RRPD, and we issued 1,900 building permits, a significant increase. This year, the province did approve the withdrawal of the City of Selkirk. Bill 37 came into effect. Our board membership reduced from 11 to 9 members. We're in a new location now, as you know, in the RM of East St. Paul. And with municipal elections, we saw about a 66% turnover in our board membership. and as of November 30th, there was just over 2,000 permits issued. So even busier than our busiest year on record, which is hard to believe. So just a quick snapshot of what was done last year. We completed over 6,800 inspections, which is a phenomenal feat. We have 3 to 4 staff members that complete inspections, and you saw the geographic area that we cover, so a lot of work done by our development services team. Of those 1,900 building permits that we did issue, there was about a 30% increase overall, but more specifically a 50% increase in single-family dwellings issued last year. We processed 319 planning applications, and our staff attended 97 council board meetings, public hearings. We had over 94,000 calls coming in, ingoing and outgoing in our office. And visits to the office decreased, and I think that's largely to the success of Cloud Permit. We saw an 82% reduction in visits to the office despite the dramatic increase in the volume of permits that we saw. So I think that just speaks to some of the successes that we've seen in doing that. This year we're on track to break all records, which is hard to believe. Permits overall are up about 2%, dwellings up 15%. At the end of November, we issued 55 more dwellings than we did all of last year. And our planning applications are generally on par with last year. So a lot of transition this year, and again, we're on track to break records, which is really hard to believe. Just some metrics for you. We have target timelines for permit review. Our fast track permits that I talked about, our goal is 10 days. These are the current processing times, so currently we're processing them at 3 days. Our certified professional program, this is a special program for mainly single family dwellings where the engineer assumes more responsibility for the design, for the structural component, which means that our staff does not have to spend so much time reviewing those applications. So our goal is 10 days, we're processing them in 1 day. Residential dwellings, 20 days, now at 5 days. Renovations and additions, 4 days, accessory structures 5 days, and inspections 1 day. Again, something I'm really proud of. We've been able to maintain that 24-hour turnaround time on inspections despite that very large increase in demand. I'm also very happy to see the reduced turnaround times. It has quieted down a little bit in the fall, but as I'm sure your CAO can attest, there were some higher numbers prior to having the resources in place that we needed. So we're very happy to see that we're delivering well under target. These processing times are published on our website and updated weekly, so applicants can see, prospective applicants can come and see what's the average wait time, what can we expect coming into this. Complaint strategy. As I mentioned, as an approving authority, sometimes people are not happy with us, as you can well imagine. We wanted to make sure that we were taking this seriously, and we do have a complaint strategy in place. I would ask that if you hear something from your ratepayers, that you ask them to contact me, or you contact me with their information, and I'm happy to follow up with that. What I like to do is investigate, unpack, see what the issue is, and that leads to improvement. We're committed to continuous improvement. What can we do better? Where are we failing? That complaint reporting is reported to the board on a monthly basis. It's broken down, and that also contributes to work plan items for me to look at achieving in subsequent years. So I really strongly encourage, if you hear complaints, please have the individual contact me. Please reach out to me. If I don't know about it, if I'm not able to investigate it and unpack it, we can't change the situation. So looking for your help on that one. Enforcement. Often a hot topic. We have legislated authority under the Planning Act when it comes to enforcement. We can only enforce certain things under the Planning Act, things relating to development plan as well as zoning and building bylaws. So the Planning Act does say that we can have designated officers that have the right to inspect and enforce properties. There's a very prescriptive process that goes along with it. We need to ensure that reasonable notice is given when we're entering a property. Property owners can refuse entry, which will require us to seek a warrant to gain entry to the property. Officers can issue orders to remedy the contravention, and the Act spells out what must be contained within the order. Typically when we get to the order stage, there's legal, our legal counsel is involved, and there's some significant costs that go along with that. Tools to remedy, as I said, we can seek warrants to enter and inspect. We can remove materials related to contraventions with respect to zoning matters. We cannot evict people or prevent entry to a property. We can seek court orders, but the best tool that we have is partnering with our member municipalities through the general enforcement bylaw, which we've been successful with, particularly in West St. Paul, and we saw the remediation of 2 properties specifically without having to go and actually do the remediation. There was compliance. Once we got to that stage, the applicant was, the property owner was complying with us when they understood the costs would be recovered by the municipality. That's a very high level of what we're doing and some of the projects that we have underway. I'm happy to answer questions. I know there's some other items that you might want to discuss in camera, but anything in relation to this or RRPD in general, or information that you need and you'd like to see us come back with, I'm happy to do.
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions for Jennifer? None?
I
Okay.
probably have some questions, but probably more in camera type questions, I would think. So.
Okay,
I have just a
go
generic.
ahead.
So when we get residents calling us, it's on the enforcement end with things that are RRPD is working on, not sitting on the board. I don't get updates or what's going on with them, and it's, a lot of them are have been going on for a while.
Yeah.
Without getting too far into it, what would my answer be? To contact RRPD and say that is where you can get the answer to that?
Absolutely, they can contact the bylaw enforcement officer, they can contact me if they prefer, and we can provide that information to them.
Okay. Just because then you're telling them what you're allowed to tell them, and I'm not speculating on anything. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously there's some legal ramifications, so we have to be careful with what we share and what we don't.
Okay, thank you.
You want to add anything else? Okay, so I guess a question, you have something to say in camera with?
If there's matters relating to the budget that you'd like to discuss or raise with me, I would be happy to answer that. If not, then I'm not sure.
My questions are
Okay,
budget
thank you.
related or
Yeah.
so.
Okay, sorry, it is under 8.2 here,
Yes,
You have to
okay.
go in camera.
or 8.1, sorry.
So then I'm gonna just ask that we move the in-camera session forward so that you can, not that you're here waiting till we get to it and then once you're done, you can go. Is that all right with everybody here?
Thank you,
For sure.
appreciate that.
Okay, so we're gonna go in camera. Okay, so next is 4.41, building sustainable, that one? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the information that we received here?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just a guideline.
so anyone have any comments on this, or?
Well, just to the mayor and Michelle, we're applying for all these programs, are we? Have we applied for the Building Sustainable Communities program?
I defer that to the CAO.
Well, we're applying, we're looking for ideas from council, what they want us to
Okay.
apply for.
Mr. Mayor?
So we set this out last meeting, we asked council if they wanted to look at this. The administration has, if one idea to put forward is for a pickleball courts at the Sonova Center to, inside the rink to develop the surface there and put in pickleball courts for summer. So that's one of the ideas that the staff has. There was another idea from Councillor Campbell who talked about a splash pad, but I think if we want to pursue that, we should probably do a preliminary a report on what's needed, the cost. Understand the cost for a splash pad could run up to $1 million. We should be shovel ready, so if we put in for a grant, we should be prepared for what we're going to spend. There's some other things with the splash pad with water that is used, how it has to go into sewer, etc. So we have a option for a pickleball court we could apply for. And a splash pad, I think if we're looking at a splash pad, the council should instruct us to go and get more information, and that's something that we would look at in the future. And any ideas the council may have.
Okay. Yeah, just Councilor
Yeah, just
Campbell?
one comment. I wonder how open Headingley would be to sharing, their information. That's probably the RM that's closest to us, that's done something large scale recently, right? With his, costs. I know costs have probably gone up 25% since they've done theirs, just because of what's going on in the world. But I would ask the mayor to direct the administration and maybe reach out to them to see if they can, fast track us or give us any sort of, pertinent information to look at or anything like that. I know lots of people that go to Headingley specifically to go use the splash pad.
Just a question for you, have we got any costs on the pickleball courts?
No,
Okay. No, I'm just looking at the program and it says it funds up to $300,000, is that right? To a maximum grant of $300,000.
yeah,
So if splash pad is $1 million, we're only gonna get 300, we have to
mhm.
It's
pay out 700. Yeah. Same thing with the pickleball courts, I can't imagine they'll be too cheap, would they?
Well, we're putting costs together on that, so we
Yeah,
have till
and how would it
second week in
affect the
January.
rink too, like in the winter, how would it affect the rink? Would it heave anything that
No.
you would be doing?
No, we're looking into that. There's ways to do it where it doesn't heave.
Okay. Okay. I know pickleball's a big thing,
Mhm.
big thing right now, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else? Nothing? Okay,
so, oh yeah, we
Go
can
ahead.
make decisions.
so next on the agenda is 4.4.3, Code of Conduct Bylaws. So if I could,
Heritage Grant Program.
Apologize.
oh, okay, sorry, yes, the Heritage Grant Program.
So same idea here. We're looking for ideas from council.
So this is, activity of non-recurring nature. What does that mean? Well, can you give us an example of what would go under the Heritage Fund?
Oh, you see that in there. I remember.
It says conservation, exhibitions, programs, interpretive signs.
That would be like signage, a one-time exhibition for something that we're doing. Collections, libraries, those type of things.
Go ahead, Councilor Platt, Bichetti, Bichetti, I gotta say it, sorry.
On the interpretive signs, I know previously the Trails Committee was looking at like maps throughout West St. Paul along the trail system, showing you were here, showing heritage sites in the area. Is that something that we could do in that, with the bollards, nice
Yep.
laminated areas? I know the Trails really was trying to do that and keep spreading it through all of West St. Paul.
Mhm.
Even just on grass trails where it's the natural trails.
Yep.
And maybe working with the IKEA Center, because they'll tell us there's native grasses in the area, that,
Mhm. How we can do that.
Does it allow for, I'm just trying to find this, does it allow for replanting of trees of any kind or no?
I'm not sure if it does replanting of trees.
It says human and natural heritage. Okay,
it's not clear, it's not
Yeah.
very
It's not
clear
very
whether
clear,
it's,
no. I know, that's the thing, it's just kinda, it says, Manitoba sport, culture and heritage. So if it's Manitoba sport and culture heritage, I'm just wondering if it can be a combined, like you can get, if you wanted to do, pickleball, you can get some funds from here and you can get some funds from there.
I'll just,
Go ahead, yeah.
traditionally, provincial grants aren't stackable.
Yes, you could only, if you're getting some money from the province from one grant, you can't get another grant from the province.
Okay, all right.
Councillor, go, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Bissett.
I was just wondering if we can ask Ms. Shaw, maybe if you can find, usually they list off what they would have put grants into last year from other municipalities, just to kind of see what was allowed and that kind of stuff.
I would,
Campbell?
yeah, sorry, I would be definitely interested, I think it was Councillor Clyburn said about trees, right? Because who knows, maybe we could get some mature-ish trees and put them in the River Springs area or something like that, right?
There's other grants that are specific to trees that we
Okay.
can apply for, so
Okay.
we were always applying for different tree grants.
Yep.
It's not pretty straightforward.
So this has, you know, the type of grants, printed materials is intended as giveaways with dual purpose of interpreting and promoting heritage. Mock-up of proposal material will assist the Heritage Grant Program Committee. It's stuff like that, right? Distribution to public, libraries, probably some of those, what we're getting a lot of is those, people are putting those libraries in front of their yards.
Yeah,
The
the,
libraries, so
Oh,
those
what do they
would,
call
yeah.
them, little,
Those would,
little library or?
Yeah, the library
Yeah.
boxes, yeah,
There
for
was a couple
kids.
people when I was campaigning that brought
Yeah.
that up, I have it marked in my book.
I thought that we were gonna do something like that.
Yeah.
I thought we had a gentleman that was gonna do that.
yeah, we have one that's just been completed.
Okay.
So we can come back with some examples for council for this one, and we'll look for,
Yeah,
I mean, the grant's not substantial, but we always apply.
well, why not, right? Use it for something.
One more comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
Can we look at more of those signs that we put up at the bulletin boards, like
Mhm.
the new bulletin boards, cause I think they look really good and, you know, it's taken away that old piece of wood that was falling
Yeah.
apart, so,
Mhm.
you know,
Use it for
spreading
that?
them throughout the whole community, just keep on going with it.
Could we use that for that grant?
It says signs,
Yeah.
like,
Possibly, yeah.
I'm just thinking, when we had a Remembrance Day, there was a lot of heritage stuff.
Yeah.
That maybe we could figure out some, because there's so much history in West St. Paul. Where we could sort of figure something like that.
Yeah, and just on that, there is a rich history, like a rich military history and,
Mhm.
you know, and other things, and maybe we could even explore a heritage fair, in the R, something like that. I mean, there's 2 intakes a year, right, in January and June.
Yep.
And when is the award usually made? It's, sometime in April and
Spring,
September?
yeah.
Spring and fall?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, you know what, on that note, wouldn't it be nice to have a brochure that does tell a little bit about the history that can be given out? About the history of West St. Paul? Because we go over it all the time at Remembrance Day, but that's probably the only time that we do. Right?
Mhm.
So we had a.
But it's not widely distributed, is what you're saying?
Yeah,
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 we could look into that.
that's something interesting.
Anyone else? That's it? Kevin? Okay. So next then is 4.4.3, the Code of Conduct bylaw. So I'd just like to just speak to this first, just to more or less clarify what it is. I have like a 20-minute timeline, which means that it's, I should say not a timeline, but I'm looking for only 20 minutes. It does mean that we can carry this conversation on later on. I was thinking that maybe this might be a very in-depth conversation. And when I was going through this, I'll tell you what I did. When I was going through this, I put myself as the individual that had the complaint filed against me, and that I was able to, I wanted to resolve the complaint, but the other individual was not able to resolve, didn't want to resolve this complaint. So I was looking for, to make sure that both sides get heard, and that both sides have an opportunity to express themselves, and that they feel that they had a fair trial. And I also did a lot of research with this. I went ahead and I looked at a number of different municipalities, what their code of conduct was. I went to the Code of Conduct Act, and I verified some things in it. So this is all a compilation of everything that I have put into it and made the changes that I thought was needed. So I guess we could start off at the top of the page. I guess the first change that we made, I don't know if anyone's got comments or right off.
Has everybody done training on it?
Yeah, there's one thing that I recommend. I did the training and I found that it was very useful going through this exercise here.
Yeah.
It really brings you up to current standards. It really puts you in a frame of mind of what this is about, what this code of conduct is about. Council, yeah, Councilor Boucher.
Yes, I finished the course.
Okay.
Me too.
It's, some of the stuff I started reading in here really contravenes that, like, we're changing days from 30 to 14, which they say in the course. We're removing employees from the code of conduct.
Employees are not in the code of conduct course.
Sure they are.
The whole course is all
You did the
how
course?
you treat your staff.
You did the course already?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Answered you.
That the course does not say that this is for employees. Employees have their own workplace health and safety that they can do a complaint if they want to complain against
Sorry,
us.
Councilor Boucher
Sorry,
was
sorry.
talking.
Councilor Boucher, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you. Most of the course is how we treat each other, how we treat the public, how we treat staff. It's all revolving the different questions through the course. It's giving us timelines that if there is a conflict, it's got 30 days to appeal it. We're like just changing numbers and stuff like that. I don't understand why we're changing a provincially approved course or however that we're mandatory to take, and we're starting to change some of the wording and what they're emphasizing on during the course. I just don't understand why we're changing that. Part about going into mediation.
I guess maybe we should just hit one topic at a time, because there's a lot of things here. So I guess, the address is, the first one is employees. I think Councilor Clyburn wanted to say something about it, or?
Well, this was added by Mayor Christian. It was not part of the original code of conduct. It was added by her in a amendment. And it is, the code of conduct does not apply to them. It applies in the sense of our dealings with the employees, but the employee should not be in the code of conduct as a regular complaint process. They can still complain, but when you're spending $10,000 a complaint, they have their own mechanism under workplace health and safety if they want to make a complaint against a council member. But to then include them in our own code of conduct with each other is not appropriate. This code of conduct is supposed to be with each other. And this is the mechanism for each other. They have their own separate mechanism to complain against us if there's an issue.
Councilor Kent?
So, I've done the code of conduct course. I've done it previously as well when I was on council. I just don't understand why we would take, it just sort of seems like it's contravening what the code of conduct is about, and that it, how we treat employees of the RM or any staff in the RM. It basically means that you don't have to treat them courteously or with a certain level of respect that you would want to be treated with. So now I'll ask, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask you questions, and you had said you've done some research. So
Yep.
What other RMs don't have their employees included in their code of conduct?
I believe that East St. Paul and St. Andrews.
They don't? Okay. Just because I'll do some research myself.
No,
right?
no, So just to give a feedback on what it is. This is what I see this as here. They call this, I've heard the term of a 360-degree appreciation and analysis. And I'll lay it out this way: is that we all have children, correct?
We'll have what?
We all have children. We all have children,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when we tell our child that, look at, you know what, I asked you to do this. You haven't done this, so this is what this is going to be a consequence of your decision. And we have that authority over our child to come along and say that this is what we're going to do. What this here does is that the child can come along now and say, you know what, Dad or Mom or whoever it is, I don't like that decision, and I'm going to go to the court and I'm going to sue you for it. And now you have to defend yourself against that because you were trying to do the right thing for the child, and you were trying to make sure that the child was safe. And now you lose. You're going to come along, or someone's going to come along and say, you know what, like, I don't want to go through that anymore. I'm going to let the child do whatever he wants, even though I don't like it. I have no choice. And what happens when you have this in, and if you take it to the employer now, an employee, someone comes along, the employer is going to make decisions. They're going to make decisions that the employee doesn't like. And the employee shouldn't use this as a means to get back at the employer. And that's what's going to happen. That's why that happens in here. That's why I took it out, because that's what's going to happen. And if I talk to other people, they do not, they think that this is a bad, that this is a bad idea. And that's the reason why I took it out. Councilor Clark.
I don't, I can appreciate your analogy. I don't agree with that analogy. That's, parent with a child, that's basically we're calling the RM staff children, right? Which,
No,
I
we're
think-
not. We're not calling, I didn't call them children. I said, I can use this as an analogy. I said that, you know what? Imagine that you had a child and that this is what's going to do. I converted it to employees of the municipality.
Yeah.
So they're not children. That is the same situation. The scenario is the same.
I personally, I think, just like my day job, I wouldn't, my boss has power over me,
That's right.
right? But I wouldn't, pardon me?
It's not the same though.
But I wouldn't, thank you. I wouldn't go in and start, belittling my boss or doing things that, I would want done to me. I think this is, it's a respect, it's a two-way street. I would never then have it in my mind that I could start saying things to the boss or the owner of my company that I wouldn't want him to do or say to me. Like that's the way I feel. I think all the employees of the RM, I don't think they're gonna be like, yeah, this should really be taken out, right? I know it's not their vote, right? But this is just how I feel. I don't think there's. I've lived in this RM 20 years, and I'd like to know how many times that there's been code of conduct against counselors from employees versus counselors, right? I don't think it's a common thing. So, what's the trigger here, right? And if Mayor Christian did bring it forward, I'd like to see that, right? What changes she made before.
Okay. Anyone?
I'll just say it's
Yeah.
not part of the legislation. This employee in our code of conduct is not part of the legislation. The legislation was legislated for council members only, to deal with council members. As I said, we have workplace health and safety, we have mechanisms for employees where they can put a complaint against a council member if the council member has treated them badly. That mechanism's already there. We're not preventing people from complaining. They can still complain. They still already have a mechanism. And we have an HR person now on top of that. So if there was a complaint, the HR person would come to council and say to council, there's been a complaint, we need to deal with this complaint. This is just straight on council to council. Counselor to counselor or council member, right? That's what it's supposed to be addressing. Because that previously was not there, and that's why it was created, council to council.
I'm gonna ask,
Just one quick, just so.
Sorry.
Pardon me?
No, go ahead, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
So, just two things, Councillor Clyber. So if you could provide to me, the workplace health and safety, guidelines.
It's in your book.
Or act, where it shows that, please. And then, that's the, I was just curious about that. So
It's in your book, actually.
And then this course that whether we've all taken it or not, the course that we took, are you saying that course was specifically made for West St. Paul?
I'm saying it was specifically made for councilors and council members.
No, but the one that we just did, the one that we've all been asked to take, is that,
Well, you took the course.
yeah, is it specifically for West St. Paul?
It's specifically for council and council members. any council or any council
But
members.
do all the other councils take that course?
Yes,
So,
You
now,
know
now,
that.
well, now I'm very confused because the way that right in that, it talks about employees. It doesn't just talk about council members.
right.
It is plain as day, it talks about employees of the RM. It doesn't just say this is for council members. So now I'm confused at you guys saying that it is.
To the CAO, through the mayor,
This, right,
do you have a workplace health and safety complaint process if a employee has a problem with a council member?
I'm not sure.
You don't have a code of ethics?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and you have a workplace health and safety program, which is right in our binder, which I've read.
Mhm.
And there is a complaint process in there.
Mhm.
Well,
End of story.
I'll have to read that, yeah, but like I said, that's my main question is if this code of conduct that we all took was specifically for West St. Paul or not, because if all the RMs take it, it specifically talks about,
That doesn't mean because it's not in the bylaw that you can't have a complaint against a person. It means that you're not going to go through this entire process with an employee. There's a separate process.
what, I know, but you've adamantly stated that it's not for employees, which
It's
I
not.
adamantly say it is because we've all taken it, and it is very, I have screenshots. I
Okay,
can show you screenshots.
so what you're saying then is, on this, you're saying because they mention employees, and they also mention the public, should we put the public in here too, that any member of the public who identifies or witnesses behavior can put a complaint against us?
I don't remember them specifically saying public.
They do.
There was multiple slides about employees, there was multiple,
There's multiple slides about the public as well. It's
Okay.
public or employees.
then sure, let's add the public.
I don't think that's a good idea.
excuse me, okay, are you guys finished?
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any more with that, okay? So we'll go down to the next, change, which was? The formal resolution process,
What number are you at, sorry?
9-2. So with this one, it's a well-known fact that the closer the incident happens and the closer that you deal with it is the most accurate. The longer the time frame that you have, the least accurate it becomes. And if an individual has felt that they are, have been, how do you say, not treated properly, if they sincerely felt that way, then they should do it immediately instead of in 30 days. The other thing that I looked at to get this one is if you take a look at the collective agreements in most companies, they have a grievance process, you can file a grievance in a certain length of time. They're not 30 days. In fact, the collective agreement for West St. Paul has a grievance process of 14 days. So if you don't report it within 14 days, then it is null and moot anymore. So you have 14 days to file a grievance with the collective agreement. And that is why I reduce it down to 30. Go ahead, Councilor Klein.
My only comment to that is what if, things are said and, the other person's really thinking before they decide to come forward, right? 14 days isn't a lot of time, 30 is, 30 is 30, but 14, why not 21 then?
21?
I'm just saying, right? Because sometimes people don't make decisions, there's instances where I could give, right? Whether it's people have crimes committed against them, they don't make decisions right away to decide to go to the police. Sometimes it takes some thought. What if someone feels intimidated or embarrassed to come forward,
Mhm.
right? So, that's,
Okay.
and I do think that was the 30 days was in the course that we all took.
The course
Councilor
is
Kleiber?
supposed to be a template, but you can strengthen the template, so it's up to the municipality how they're gonna strengthen it or not strengthen it.
I feel this is
Councilor
weakening.
Campbell?
I feel lots of the changes here are weakening the template, not strengthening it.
I just asked that you direct questions to me, so that.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, okay, both, okay, go ahead, continue, sorry. Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, the comment was made that, all these changes are strengthening it. I feel,
I didn't think
I feel that some of these changes would be weakening and, sort of lessening someone's voice.
to the mayor,
Yes, Councillor
I never
Campbell?
made the statement that it's weakening it. I said that some councils have used it, that it's supposed to be a template, and you can strengthen it if you so choose.
Is that the right time, second?
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else have anything to say? Nothing? Okay, the next one is 95A. Confirm that both the complainant and respondent, that the informal complaint process was pursued first, so this is more of a verification that, question to ask that this did happen. I didn't see that in here, I thought this was something that would be needed, so that there is a confirmation that it was done.
Yeah, we had over 3 or 4 returned from the intake reviewer with no informal resolution completed.
D910B, there was must prove a written reason for not accepting the recommendation to dismiss before the next phase of the formal complaint resolution can proceed. This I felt was that it was needed so that it does promote the councils to have a written response so that everyone knows what it was as opposed to not having one at all. Any questions, comments? Nothing? Okay. 914, mediation. Mediation is not a voluntary process. I guess, go ahead, Councillor Campbell.
Oh, I'll wait till you're done, I just.
No, go ahead, no.
Okay, so, it kind of goes back to my previous, comment. Let's say me and Councillor Busetti, we had, something that's come up here. What if I'm not, feeling like I'm up to sitting one-on-one with Councillor Busetti and, so I don't think it should be a forced, that's my opinion, like, just like lots of times, people that make complaints don't want to, face their, the complainant, or, I just don't think that's a good thing to make it not voluntary. If him and I, let's say just fictitiously, if him and I could sit down and work it out, if we both agreed to, that's good, but if, let's say if I've done something that's offended him or something like that, and he doesn't wanna sit with me, I don't think it's a good idea to force anybody to do anything.
Okay.
The
Go ahead,
course,
Councillor. Shannon?
I agree. I believe before it would get to this point, we're all adults. It would be a discussion between, I'm gonna use Councillor Campbell's reasoning with me and him, we're having an issue. I believe we would try to resolve it prior to it getting to this stage of a complaint.
Yeah, okay.
So to force a mediation between the two of them, between the two of us, I guess we're gonna say, because that's what we're using.
Yep.
I don't think that's right to have to force that, because I think most of us would have probably tried to resolve it.
Okay.
Or there's, underlying other reasonings for not wanting to do it. A continuous problem that's been going on, and that could have been a final straw to something. So there's other outlying things that could have been to that, so.
Okay. Councillor Clyburn?
the course says that both parties must try. So if you go back and look at the course, it says they must try mediation. In my case, in one of my complaints, actually in just about all of them, the complainant said, I don't care what Councillor Clyburn picks as mediation, I'm not doing it with her. So the whole spirit of this code of conduct is to try to get along and resolve your differences. And when you say, I don't care, I didn't do the informal resolution, when it comes to the mediation, I'm not doing that either, no matter what she picks. then what are you actually trying to do? You're trying to attack that person, and that's what has happened with these code of conducts, is they've been used as a mechanism to attack people. Because they don't like them, because they're mad at them, because whatever. So that, you know, because we're talking about this in public, I'm gonna talk about it, and I'm gonna say that I have been on the receiving end of this, where there's been no attempt at all to talk to me. No attempt at an informal resolution. No attempt to mediate, no attempt on anything. And then boom bang, it's through to an investigation, and I'm dealing with an investigator. And $10,000 later, on one of mine that was dismissed by the intake reviewer and was still voted through, it is then dismissed. But it's 11 grand later. Like, at one point or another, you have to try, and like the course says, you have to try to mediate. You have to try and resolve the difference. And sometimes, and I've gone through mediation in a company, and just recently, sometimes you need somebody who's a third party there that has no skin in the game, that's gonna sit there and say, okay, let's talk about yours. Then they go and they talk to the other person. You're not necessarily across from each other. You're in separate rooms. They go and talk to them, they go and talk to you, and they try to resolve it. But if they feel that nobody is really wanting to resolve it, then it moves on. So there has to be some kind of something in between before you start running over to investigation. And that's why the course says you have to try.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I believe Councilor Pacetta
Oh,
is-
Councilor Shen, yes, go ahead.
Can I, if I may just comment?
Sure, by all means.
Councillor Kleiber brought up the previous things that have happened in this council. In previous council, sorry. There was also some other instances in that council where we had worked on team building, so in a way, that is part of your mediation, where we saw that there was a problem in our council. You know, we were having problems, we tried a team building. So to me, that is partially looking at a way of a mediation, having a third party in there as a working on the entire council, not
But it's
picking
not
up.
mediation
I got
for
the
the,
floor right now, though, just let me
Thank you.
just get through my point. So it is part of the work as mediation. When it's a continuing issue, I'm gonna stop right there, just, I don't wanna say too much stuff that was, you know, I don't wanna hash up other stuff that,
Okay, that's right, okay.
but there was attempts, as far as I could see the way it was working with the council.
Yes, okay, well, that's good. Councilor Clyde?
there needs to be mediation for the specific complaint. And it says right in that course, you must try.
So-
And that's why I have a problem when nobody tries, when the informal, we had 3 or 4 with no informal resolution, they were put right through. We had dismissed ones, sometimes they were dismissed, sometimes they were not, depending on who you were. So this is trying to take out the, if you're not, I didn't wanna say.
Okay.
I think we know
Okay.
where I'm going.
Anyone else?
Say it.
So I guess there's one thing in 914, that I was looking at, and it's the last phrase as provided in Schedule A as attached by the bylaw. My thought here is that we shouldn't have this in here, or we should change what's on Schedule A. Right now, there is corporations on Schedule A. And usually in mediation, you pick the individual that you want to have. It's an agreement between individuals, not between corporations. What I see between corporations is that when you pick the corporation, they're going to send you whoever they got on the list. But if you pick the individual that you want, then you have an agreement that that individual is the one that's going to be mediating. And then you know it, and you pick the individual because you know who the individual is. You've heard of what his track record or their track record is. So that if we're going to do anything, we should expand this Schedule A to include the names or the location of where you can choose the mediator from. It's on a website on Manitoba Labor, and that should be in here too.
Are
on it.
these, Mayor, these the ones recommended by the province? Or are these separate ones that have been recommended?
They do not appear on the province's list. Individuals appear on the province's list, not corporations.
Do these corporations appear on the province's list?
No, they don't. Corporations don't appear. It's all
Because
individuals.
our bylaw says they're provincially provided list of mediators.
That's on the provincial website.
Yeah.
And that's why
And
we
these
should
ones
have,
are not on there.
no, they're not on there.
So then Schedule A has to either be compliant with 914
Or best to remove it
or
and not have it, because,
and same thing with 920 then.
Councilor Campbell?
Yeah, like, yeah, I'd be interested to see, the names, yeah, like that you mentioned.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I'd be, you know, I'd be interested to see where that list comes from or who they are for sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So now we go down to I guess we'll make this the last one. Investigation, 918. There's no complaint and the responding to the complaint does not agree. That was removed? Why was that removed? Okay, I took that out and I took out the committee of council. Took that out too, and I don't know why I took the first one out after thing, 18. If the complainant and the respondent to the complaint do not agree to mediation or mediation resolution is not possible, the complaint must proceed
Maybe that
to-
918 should go to where 917 is, and then you start your investigation.
Because to me, that should stay in, right?
Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor,
Go ahead, Ken.
Well,
I'm sorry, in mediation, if you're not allowing it to be a voluntary process, 918 is void because
Oh, okay, yes,
That's-
right,
it's not an
Okay.
option.
okay. Thank you very much.
So the two flow. Without one, you wouldn't have the other two.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
That's,
Yeah, good.
yeah,
Just
Mr.
go
Mayor,
ahead.
that's what I was gonna say, I
Okay.
think you took it out because it goes hand in hand with 914. So, you know, once again, in my personal opinion, I believe 918 should stay.
Yes, okay. And then it got changed. So then I guess, I looked at this one, committee of council. I don't know if it's a good idea to have council, us members involved in complaints amongst ourselves. We should take that out and put that to a third party. More or less just to give us some separation, and any hard feelings, because then it's not us against them. That's what I see with this one. I don't feel comfortable with that in there for that reason. And that's why it should automatically go to a third party, because they're independent. Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Bichetti.
Yeah, if I may ask,
Sure.
Ms. Shaw, we don't do the investigation. The complaint investigation automatically goes to the third party. It's not the committee of council that conducts the code of conduct complaint investigation.
It does say that here, a committee of council or.
As it's written, it's an option.
Okay, well then I'll agree with you there. I was just reading it different, it's just how you read everything and it's.
Yeah, I know.
And it's,
So that took it all the way down to,
yeah, I wouldn't wanna be the one doing the investigation.
no, I think that needs to be definitely third party.
So do you need that section at all then? Because and then it would just right away go into, if either the complainant or respondent indicates they want a third party to conduct the investigation.
Well, it still talks about investigations, right? If a third party investigator,
Okay.
you still gotta give instructions to the third party.
Yeah.
So then we'll just close it up over here, we'll think about what we had here, and then we'll take this up at another time. Reflect on what we said, go ahead. And is that it?
Oh, you got your Cartier water polo?
Oh, yes, Cartier Water Co-op, yes.
Also, point of order, Mr.
Okay, go ahead.
On your code of conduct proposed changes here, what's the process that you're proposing here? That we're gonna bring this back at a future meeting?
Yes, we are.
Are you also allowing members of the public to comment on your proposed changes
Well,
at a
my-
future meeting, or are you bringing it up here at the at the committee of the whole, or to a council meeting? What's the plan? Or what's your vision on it?
I think originally we were gonna have an educational briefing and kind of talk it out. Which would then allow us to have a more private conversation.
But as
Yeah.
it stands, I mean, we only went up to 10 point something.
Yes,
And so you're gonna bring it back to committee of the
Yes.
whole to go through more changes? And at
yes.
some point, you're gonna welcome public feedback on it? Is what you're thinking, or?
Um,
I'm sure.
I guess we should talk about that, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's, if you might, it's a valid point, I guess. It is a valid point, like, what are the pros and cons of it?
Yeah.
mean, I never thought of it, but I would consider it. Right, so we'll just bring it up at another,
Good, thank
okay,
you.
okay.
Just a question for you, Councillor Pat, Ken, how would you do public feedback on it?
Well, I would
What are your
defer
thoughts on
to the legislative officer, but if you put it on the agenda of council for discussion, presumably it would be open for public feedback. I mean, we are in a public forum now, we're
Mhm.
introducing it in a public forum.
Yeah,
Like, would that be by email, would you open the floor, cause you can only open the floor in a public hearing,
Yeah,
right?
like I said, I would defer to the staff in terms
Yeah.
of how the process it works out, but
Yeah,
it's up to you if you want to provide public.
I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with that,
Yeah.
so how we go about it.
okay. So now we go to Cartier Water. Oh, there's a difference.
Yep.
Okay, anyone have any comments or on it, or?
Maybe just to the staff, do we have a facility here in West St. Paul with regards to this, the Cartier Regional Water Co-op? Is there a facility here in our premises, like within the region?
We have a reservoir,
Okay.
and we're expanding our reservoir, so the water's piped in from Headley through Wasser to West St. Paul. And we have a reservoir, and water is treated, and then it's distributed throughout the community. There's lines throughout the community.
Okay. Like it's serving like residential homes, okay.
Well, looks like the financial statements are on the plus side, so
Yes,
that's a good thing.
so I know. Perfect. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we can move on to the next thing on the agenda, which is nothing. Okay,
Question for you.
question period, okay. Any questions?
I'll let the ladies go first.
Oh, no, I have nothing. Oh, you have nothing, I just had a comment. I have to give a- Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Norma
Norma.
Albert, 312 Evelyn. No question, just a comment. I was at the residents' meet and greet last week, and there was a few comments from residents who thought it was a great idea and that it was nice to meet people actually from within the RM that they had not met before. And Councillor Patcan, I understand that you were unable to attend right from the outset, and I'd like to thank the mayor and Councillor Kleiber for coming along. I understand you were at another party at the municipal one and came there, and we really appreciate that. And for Councillor Musetti, who's my councillor, and Councillor Campbell, I'm sorry that you made the decision not to attend. And I think that it's fair to say that the residents heard your message as well, pretty loud and clear. We appreciate you spoke there. And so I hope that there are some some gatherings in the future where there will be opportunities for informal interaction like that between council and the residents. And perhaps that's something that can be considered as an activity on an infrequent basis for which the Sonova Center could be used. I know the residents paid the rent for that, and perhaps, you know, on a basis determined whether it's annual or otherwise, it could be some activity that becomes sponsored by the administration, and that it provides that opportunity. I think it's also a good demonstration of how important it is that all of the information be on the table when any decision has to be made. It's unfortunate that it seems like the council was sort of double booked for that night, so I think it's important that we all try to function further to the code of conduct and try to function as a team, sort of the three pieces, which are the elected officials, the ratepayers, and the administrative the staff. If we can function better as a team and talk with each other and keep our big boy pants on all the time and try to listen respectfully to what each other has to say, then I think that in the end we'll have much better decisions, and just in general we'll have a better atmosphere and teamwork. Thanks very much.
Mr. Mayor.
You go ahead.
I don't know what the process here, I'd just like to respond, so, did, you know, I think saying the count, you know, residents seem loud and clear what our priorities were, or whatever, you know, how you worded it there. Did the residents, you know, I was away when the first one came out, so I didn't respond to that, I know for sure I was away on holidays. And then, did the residents check with the RM if there was other events that night or anything? Like you know, it's a hard decision, right? So which one do you go to, right? Because if we wouldn't have went to the other one, well, the fire department's also an important part. Same with the residents, right? And the fire department is also residents of West St. Paul.
You went to both?
Yeah, they weren't there for supper, no. So
That's right, they forfeited the supper.
yeah, so you know
We make our choices.
Yeah, we do. I just, your choice of words, you know, talking about big boy pants and then basically insulting Councillor Busetti and myself.
I said we all need to do that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that includes residents. So like I said, the way you worded it is
We'd happen.
interesting, so that's fine.
Any more questions?
I hope he's not taking my time. Jerry Belenky, 354 Garden View Drive. I have a number of things. I really didn't want to I really had an important one, but I'll touch on a few. This thing about the employees. My understanding from all the time is council doesn't interact with the employees. It goes, the mayor does through the CEO. The rest don't interact with the council. Is that correct, or is it changed? That was the standard before. So I don't know what all this is about, that the employees have to be into it, because the councillors have no reason to be interacting with them, first of all. Mayor to CEO, that's the point.
Can I answer that just real quickly, sorry?
Sure.
When, for our payroll or our benefits or even, our computer problems, you're interacting with.
That's the process. Mayor to CEO, you go to the mayor, that's the process.
Well, and I can guarantee
Well,
you
that's the
that the
process.
process hasn't been followed by everybody at
Well,
this table.
Lots of things aren't followed.
I think, okay, can we go to the
We
next?
don't want to argue about it.
Next comment, please?
About all these grants. Grants are great, but I would like to see the budget made first. Because in times, councillors have requests for certain items to be built in their ward. But then grants come up and money is needed to go to fulfill the grants. So then at the end, the councillors are not getting their funding because it's not available. It's only so much money, right? So I don't like that the grants are setting the policy for the budget. I think the budget should be made, and then if there's money, or if there's money put in for grants, then it should be in the budget. Otherwise, where does it come from? You know, there's,
Okay,
okay,
Councillor
whatever.
Perry?
So are you, I'm just gonna put it right out there, are you saying not to apply for these grants?
No,
There-
that's not what I
let me
said.
just, let me finish, I let you
Okay.
finish through the whole thing before I started anything.
Okay,
They give us a grant, or they give us the application for the grant.
okay,
There's 6 or 8 weeks to apply for that grant.
okay.
The deadline's happening. Sometimes those grants don't come around every year when there's no money coming from the top. So are you assuming that we don't apply for those grants, even
No.
though we haven't planned it on our
Not what I
budget?
said.
Well, but when there's a deadline and it comes up mid-year, and it's not a grant that we're aware of.
Is the
do we
budget
not
made
apply?
on the last day? Or do you think about it ahead of time?
We just received the grant today, the grant application
understand
today,
that.
which are we gonna have budget done at
So
the
then,
time of that
maybe a street
application
will,
expiry?
maybe a street will get paved or resurfaced because we're putting signs up. Now, if you're the resident on that street who would like to have the street paved or upgraded and doesn't even use the trail, you tell me what he would like. He's a taxpayer.
I don't think we would be looking at,
Well, I don't wanna
looking at
debate
a
it.
sign,
It's my,
oh, I thought it was to me, sorry.
Go for it.
I don't think we'd be looking at a sign if we're at a point where we have to worry about, we're not gonna do this grant if we can't pave that street. I think if we're at the point of doing that, we're not even gonna be the 50% that there is, or 30% that we'd have to be putting into these grants. All I'm trying to say is grants come up at different times throughout the year. We're not made aware of all the grants and when they come up. We've had some that have come up, and then there's been 2-3 years where there's been nothing. So we, as council, I think we push the staff to, you apply for every grant that's out there possible, because, I don't know, I wouldn't wanna be the one to tell the residents out there that, no, we left the money on the table, we didn't even apply for it. But I don't think we'd be at a point where we're not gonna pave your street picking onto a
the
sign.
point I don't like is unelected members to the council deciding the budget. That's what I don't like. The council should decide the budget because those are the ones that are elected. And when you have somebody from another government saying, this money is available, now this is what we would like to do, and there's a carrot. When you people are supposed to run the municipality, it's not how many grants you get.
But you're saying not a member of the council.
Oh, I want to talk about.
Councillor Kleiber
Oh,
wanted to
sorry, I
comment?
was looking at
Yeah, I
you
was
and-
just,
No,
I think I'm misunderstanding the conversation, and I hope I get it clarified. What you're saying is, the presentation tonight, you don't want that to drive our decisions that we make, is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is I don't want the grants to drive the policy of the municipality, because you make a budget, if you wanna put $500,000 into for grants,
Yeah.
then you do that, and that's in the budget. But when you make a budget, and you're including something for, see, Councilor Pressetti's, you want a park or whatever, right? And then grants come in, and now we need the money, so they say, well, you know, you won't get your money, we'll put it into that. Well, that's not what it's supposed to. You're supposed to make the budget. If you wanna take grants, you put the money in for the grants. And I understand they don't come all at once, but they know through history how much money comes, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
believe that in budgets previous to this, we have, we defer grants to come in. That's one of the things that we do, we have.
Yeah, grants
We have
are great.
we put together what we want, and then we apply for those grants as well.
I understand that, but saying that just any grant that's available, this is what we should take because it's free money, it's not free money. Somebody pays. Either this taxpayer is still the same taxpayer for all places.
We've been criticized though too, for not applying for grants. So we've been
Depends on the
criticized for not applying for grants for a rink. We've been criticized for not applying, but it's not in our budget, it's not something that we're entertaining at the time. But then we become under fire to say, well, why aren't you entertaining it? So it's kind of a two-edged sword for us, right? I mean, we are trying to do what's best for, I believe everybody on this council is trying to do what's best for the municipality. I really do believe that. And we're trying to apply for those grants as much as we can for the capital assets that we wanna.
I have a question to make my point.
Okay, so can I just, this
Sure,
will be.
go ahead.
No, this will be your last question.
Okay, well, I have another question, an important one. I had a, what do you call it, question, a safety issue, but anyhow, I just wanna ask this question because it'll have to do with my reasoning about the grants. Did we get a grant to put that mural underneath Chief Peguis Bridge?
I would have to go to CAA.
Yes,
And it was $50,000.
I don't believe so.
It's under the bridge. That's what's wrong.
There were two phases to that project. There was phase one, and then this past year was supposed to be phase two, and I don't know what happened to phase two, if it was completed, if we applied for a grant on phase two. That would have to go to administration.
Yeah.
Did we apply for a grant on the second phase for our capital outlay?
It's under the bridge.
Councillor Bichetti, you got.
Well, you're saying we should budget for grants. We budgeted for that.
I'm saying this is the problem. Just because money's available,
You're thinking it's a problem, but I see residents on a daily basis using that bridge as connectivity to this municipality. And I think that's what this
Okay.
council, I think that's what council is doing, is trying to unite bring the community
Alright.
connected. And
I think $50,000 for a mural under the bridge is,
There was no $50,000.
well, how much was it?
$20,000,
Okay,
a
$20,000.
grant. And it was based on our strategic plan, beautification. It's based on keeping safety, so if the area is beautified, that there'd be less crime. There's lights under the bridge, so, you know, it's what you might hate, somebody else might like.
I didn't say I hated it, I just.
Well,
There was a second phase to this.
yeah,
And what happened to the second phase? Did we get a grant
we
for the
did
second
not do
phase?
anything for the second phase.
We haven't done anything. We haven't applied for any grants for that.
No.
Okay, anyone got, okay, that's it.
The safety issue that I had, that's the one I wanted to
I
talk
said one
about.
question, so
Okay,
that was it.
on the corner of,
No, sir,
You're done, sir.
yeah,
Done?
yeah, that one,
Okay.
I asked, that's why I said, you got one question left, and that was, you chose that question.
all right,
Your twice
we'll
came
wait
across.
for the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay. So then that is it for that's it. The meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, 7:35 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your comments, guys. That was really great. Appreciate it.